Record. Okay, thank you. And we'll stream Zoom. I love how Zoom is making changes to everything. And I'll just hit live. And everyone, welcome to Travel Tuesday. Thrilled that you guys could join me again. As you know, I've been doing these all year. Ashish was actually here for the very first one I did, and thrilled that he came back to join us again. The very first one we touched on Peru, and what else did we do?
Peru and Ecuador. We touched on the Galapagos a little bit, but it was a lot of Peru. And it was, I love, what I love about doing this with you is it's completely informal, just as you said. You know, you're allowed to sweat, you're allowed to be able to stumble a bit and have fun. That's the key thing, is, you know, just having fun, because we're talking about something fun.
Awesome. And we're all, we have a couple, Ashish and a couple of his colleagues from Big Five Tours around with us. We have about 16 to 20 folks who are joining with me live, and perhaps some others on Facebook as well. And we're just going to have a conversation about Morocco. For those of you who've joined me on Travel Tuesday before, you know that we're still in lockdown in Ontario, although the restrictions are easing ever so gradually. Our patio started opening last Friday on the 11th, and I'm hearing that the Ontario-Quebec border will actually open on Wednesday, fingers crossed. Canada's doing fantastic, of course, with our first dose vaccines. I think we're leading the world with over 65% of the entire population. And I think last time I checked, 73% of everybody over 12 has had one vaccine. So we're narrowing the gap for the second vaccine. As soon as we get everyone vaccinated and meet those numbers, we can start traveling. Hopefully the restrictions will ease a bit. But until that day, we are thrilled to have folks like Ashish join us. Ashish Sangharajka is the president of Big Five Tours in Florida. He's a great friend of mine. We work together on client trips. We've sent clients to Morocco, to Dubai, to Costa Rica, to Peru, to South Africa, Kenya, Tanzania. I work with them a lot on different kinds of trips. And as you folks have heard me say previously, we do customized trips with Ashish. That's not to say we couldn't organize a small group if there are people who are interested in doing a small group, and we can put that together. But most of the trips I have put together with him are for a couple or a solo or a family, and it's building the entire trip to be exactly what you want. Ashish, tell us about Morocco. Let me.
Well, for sure. Well, I have to say,
throw it over to you.
I got to make sure I live up to everything you just said. So here goes nothing. So, you know, I got to tell you, out of all those experiences, my favorite experience out of all of them is still the video we did with Kaylee.
Oh.
You know, I get very passionate about conservation and sustainability, sometimes too much so. And your daughter offers a beautiful conduit to what the future is, and how important this is becoming for future generations. And so I on my desk, as a matter of fact, it's so funny. You know, I had a colleague walk into my office just this morning, and do you remember when I came to her school and we did that talk? So I have that on my desk, the photo with all the hands up in the air, and somebody goes, "Where was this taken?" And then my daughter heard her saying, because, you know, she's off school, she came in and she goes, "Yeah, where was this taken?" I said, "Well, I was at school." She goes, "You're a teacher?" I said, "No, not exactly." And I explained what happened. So apparently, thanks to you and your daughter, I am now the hero in this house.
Oh, awesome.
So, yeah, it's very, I'm a celebrity here.
Yes. You got to milk it for all it's worth.
Absolutely.
There's nothing like being in your own home, not to get.
No, exactly right. And I actually came in here and closed the door. I planned my day properly, because today's my wife's birthday. So I got a nice cake for her and everything.
Oh,
got everything set
and you're
up.
doing this with us on your birthday.
No, you know what? It's raining outside right now. She gets to drop my son off at basketball practice. I'm good.
Awesome. Well, please say thank you to her for me. For the clients and friends who were on the call, Ashish has come to Ottawa and done some presentations with my clients. We've done some great presentations about sustainability and traveling to South Africa, traveling to Peru. And one day when he was here, he came to my daughter's school, Elmwood School, and did a presentation to my daughter's class when she was in grade 4 at the time, all about the importance of sustainable tourism and talking to these girls about how they can be future leaders. Well, 5 years later now, my daughter, who was in grade 4, is now in grade 9. She just did a project on sustainability and interviewed Ashish. So for anyone who's interested, I'll send you the video. She did a great, she had an
She did a
8-minute
fantastic job.
documentary she had to do on sustainable tourism and why it's important, and talked to Ashish all about his company's work in Peru. It was
Oh,
fantastic.
I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. Well, so let's jump into olives. No, that's not right. So I gotta tell you, I actually don't like olives. In fact, I hate them. If you find me in a plate that olives are in the salad or any of the dish, you will find the olives in a little corner for anybody else to take. The sole exception is Moroccan olives. So the first question everybody asks is, well, I thought we were talking about Morocco. Why are you showing olives? That's a great question. And if I haven't answered this by the end of our talk here, that means I really am horrible at what I'm doing. So here's the key part of it. The reason I start off with olives is everything that you eat, everything that you touch, everything that you see traces back to olives. And I don't just mean food. It could mean an area, you know, an aroma, oil traces back to olives. Obviously, the food traces back to olives. You could be going into and looking at a Casbah and looking at the design of the Casbah, and there's something inside it that traces back to olives. It literally is that 6 degrees of separation game that Kevin Bacon plays. It's 6 degrees of separation from olive pits. That's really what really comes down to in Morocco. It's really quite amazing. And I talk about this just because the process of how olives are made in Morocco is just something that I'll never forget. High up in the Atlas Mountains near Imlil or near Tukbal, but on the trailheads, so closer towards Marrakesh, not the Eastern Atlas Mountains. And I'll show you on a map later on where all this is. You've got this actual process of how olives are made. So this wheel right here, just imagine for a second, the olives all get thrown into this little plate here. And then there's a mule that goes in a circle, just walks in a circle. I mean, you talk about, you think your day's monotonous. Imagine being a donkey walking in a circle all day. That's your job. And all their job is to squeeze these olives, which you see like on the right-hand side over here. They squeeze these olives as it goes in a circle. And at the very bottom over here, there's a little plate. And the oil comes down, and because this is all stone, none of it sticks. It just dribbles down and comes, it gets, and it stays pure. And depending on what level of oil and how virgin you want the oil to be, there's a process around this in terms of what they do and how long to let it ferment, how long to let it sit, how long to let it do different things. It's just amazing. And for somebody who doesn't like olives, I gotta tell you, when I'm there, I am looking for this. I'm looking for this experience. So before I go beyond olives, again, as I mentioned earlier, and Sheila and I, we do this all the time, and I love doing this with her just because of the fact that, as we've talked about, it's informal. So if you like olives, do me a favor, in your chat box, or just, you know, say something, put a Y that says you like olives, or just unmute yourself and say, yes, I love olives. And it's a cheap trick for me to get you for me to see that you guys know what the chat box is, so that you can interrupt me as much as you want to. So the idea behind this, perfect, thank you. The idea behind this is just to be able to actually show you that, you know, as we go through tonight, if I say something that you appreciate, if I say something you disagree with, you can tell me to stop talking, or you can actually tell me that that you like something that I've said. The idea is to have fun and to be able to actually take all of this and simply just get you thinking about international travel. I like the exclamation points, by the way. That was actually very good. That was very good. So
from our virtuoso world, if you give exclamation marks like that a couple in a row, it's like you're giving applause.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. So if you guys are giving me applause right now, then I'm leaving right now, because that means my job's done. No. So let's talk about this again. So Olives, you take a look over here, you can see that there's so many different types of olives, and they're grown in different ways. And you have to see that, I swear some of these the contraptions they use to get these olives off the tree, it is absolutely hilarious. It is something that you look back and say, that is the simplest, most rudimentary design. However, it is so efficient. I mean, one of them, I'll give you an example. So one of them, I'll never forget this. I saw this in the Eastern Atlas Mountains. So you guys know how olive trees grow up. Yes, goats. There you go. So how olive trees actually, the way they grow up like this. So they're shaped like this. So in order to get the olives off, you gotta have to use a little process. Some trees, they put a net underneath the tree and then they just shake the tree. They find a way to shake the tree to get the olives to fall. So I will never forget this. I saw this way out in Ouarzazate, and we'll come to Ouarzazate towards the end of our evening, and I'll tell you about that because it's quite famous. But I saw this. So do you guys remember those old machines where you get a workout, but you stand on the machine, this belt goes around you and it starts shaking all over the place, supposed to give you a workout? I saw somebody standing next to an olive tree, one of those things on. And they started shaking the belt, and it was basically, they were shaking everywhere with the tree. And all these olives started dropping all over them. And I wish I had taken a video of it because it was absolutely the funniest yet most effective thing I've ever seen in my entire life. So it's not just about the olives, it's also about how the olives are taken down. That's a big part of it as well. So when people think of Morocco, you think of a Medina or the souks or a mosque, or you think of camels or the desert. What are some words you guys think of? With Morocco? And Paul, you can't say martinis, but anybody else? What are, again, chat box, put in, what are some things you guys think of when it comes to Morocco? Yep, Fez, that's a good one, and we'll talk about that in a bit as well. What else? Feel free to pop in the chat box. I asked that. I got to tell you, I had one person come out and say Argentinian beef. I said, excuse me? They said, well, it's not that far from Spain or Portugal. Okay, not quite, but all right. Okay, so woodwork, yes, that's exactly right. So take a look at the picture that's up right now. So this is what street food looks like. This is spices. Elaine, you're spot on. That's exactly what I was going to say, is right here. And Catherine, spot on, the food. So taking a look over here, this is inside the Medina, what the local food looks like, what we call street food. Now, I love these places because my mom was born in Sudan. I was born in Kenya. My father was born in Kenya, but my mother was born in Sudan. So I used to go to Sudan all the time as a child, and we would eat all sorts of different foods, right? So from food to falafel to everything else. This is more Lebanese dishes. So Moroccan dishes are very different. However, when you get into the street food, the similarities start showing up. So for example, you'll start seeing these dried hibiscus leaves. They're called karkade in Arabic. And that's what they have them in Egypt. They have them in Sudan. They have them all over. They're called karkade in Egypt, but there are places inside the Medina, in the old town, of some of these cities, where they call them karkade there as well. So if you want to start getting the bridge to ancient Islamic cultures, it's not just the mosques, it's not just the temples, it's not just the ruins. You've got to go into the old towns, in between the walls, to see the street food. That's really what it comes down to. That's actually quite special. Now, anybody here have a hammam? Ever had a hammam treatment, or hammam spa? So Laura, yeah, South Sudan actually, so that's actually a great thing to say. And yes, you had it. So my uncle currently still lives in Khartoum. My mom's brother still lives in Khartoum in Sudan. And so of course he was caught up in this entire civil war, in terms of it. And he said something very similar. He said, South Sudan, once the political situation there, which may take a long time, but once it actually solidifies, that it could be the very next frontier. And I don't actually disagree with him. In terms of it. So I used to go to Sudan all the time when I was a kid, and Laura, you're spot on. Beautiful pyramids everywhere. It is essential in terms of it. So the hammams. So if you're looking for a Swedish massage that's nice and easy, yeah, this isn't it. Definitely not it. This is about as intimate as you can get. You can't be shy in a hammam. You will come out exfoliated. You will come out completely feeling refreshed, but you may be bruised. You may be a bit sore because it's a really tough, yeah, it's a really tough thing. And Laura's spot on. They take off a few layers of skin. It's basically the old-fashioned exfoliation. So they don't just go, oh, this is gonna open up your pores. No, we'll just take this layer off. It's like priming wood floors. In essence, that's what it comes down to. But it is something that is as painful as it may sound, it's not. It actually is something you have to do once. What happens with hammam is, you know, when you get into this room, and of course everything is warm, everything's in a towel. It's, again, you can't be bashful. Obviously, we set up private hammams, but when you're there, you come out of the first treatment and you either enjoyed it enough to go back and do it again at some point, maybe once a year you do it, or you come out and go, no, everything hurts, I'm not doing that again. Will be one or the other, but you have to try it once. It's just that different. You have to try it once. What it ends up doing is, when I tell people with hammam is, it's, you know, it's not just about going and saying, oh, I did a hammam treatment. It's beyond that. You actually come away from this and have a better understanding of what kind of treatment you actually would enjoy. You know, and that's a big part of it. So yeah, exactly right, Laura. You will be really, really clean. And you know what? It's funny you say that. I keep thinking. I don't know if you guys ever seen Police Academy, the old Police Academy movies. So Commandant Lassard always said, many, many, many. That's what he kept saying. That was his adjective for everything. So I say the same thing. How is hammam? It is many, many, many things. That's how I'll describe it. Is what a hammam is. So let's take a look at the food. In terms of Elaine, now that's funny. Will they remove my tan? Actually, you would be surprised. I think they actually can. And I say that because, as you can see, I actually am pretty tanned. But I have to tell you, I've done a hammam before, and I'm not even kidding. My face, my hands right here, the skin comes out just a little bit lighter. All this hair is gone. But it comes out a little bit lighter, and it to me, I enjoyed it. Maybe not during, but afterwards, I really enjoyed it. So I will say that. So this is the food that if you're in Morocco, you have to eat at least once. It's called tagine. You know, we Indians use tandoori ovens, and you start seeing similarities. Well, this is the Moroccan version of a tandoori oven. This is basically, it's the clay pot, how they cook everything over open fire. And tagine is the staple dish. So I was up with a family up in the Atlas Mountains, and being up with the Atlas Mountains, you know, what was really, really what was great. Laura, you're cracking me up. So what was really great about this is that you get to learn how they make tagine. You see olives and everything in there as well, but how they cut everything right there. So what's really interesting about Moroccan families, the dichotomy of a Moroccan family, especially the Berber families, and this is where you see more of it, is that if you, typical traditional old-fashioned Berber families, you know, the women were rarely educated. The men were educated, the women maybe went up to 5th or 6th grade, and then it was okay, start cooking. So what's happening in some of these Berber houses now is women are turning to tourism as a way to further their education by getting the money to keep going in school, to go through university, and then bringing people to their family home to learn about how to make tagine, how to cut everything. And what's really, really amazing in that is the bread. Is how the Moroccan bread is made. That's a key part of it as well. So you'll see different breads here, but that bread on the left-hand side, I have to tell you, so what I saw was just amazing. I'll show you a picture later on of what a Berber fire pit looks like and how they make their bread. I saw this 19-year-old girl who, it was the best bread I ever had. This 19-year-old girl who actually put the sleeve on, took the dough and actually plastered it in some water, then plastered it along the wall of a fire within that stone pit. And then she's reaching her hand into the fire to shape this bread to come out. Not a burn in sight. Nothing was burned at all, but yet she had everything here. And I gotta tell you, the bread, the way she had it on the stone pit, it was capturing every single flavor. It was just amazing. Here's the pits I was talking about. Okay, so the right-hand side is what a fire pit will look like when you're going to somewhere touristy, right? So if you're there, if you're somewhere touristy, that becomes kind of what, you know, what you'd see at a hotel, or if you're in a particular spa, or if you're in a particular part of town. The left-hand side, that's the actual fire pit I was talking about in that home. So the very top is where they start warming up the water, they're warming everything up, or they'll move their pot and put the tagine pot on top and let the fire cook it from there as well. And then I watch this woman reach her hand inside that opening, and I'm talking up to her elbow, all the way in, place that bread along the side she was placing on the stone. It was cooking inside, so all the flavors were being captured. It was being smoked the whole time. And then she's able to take the wood stick and be able to peel it off without one drop of it or one piece of it landing in that fire, touching the ash, touching the wood, nothing. It came out pristine and clear, and it was just amazing. So that's why what I tell people is this, and you'll love this. If you see a man standing next to the fire pit like the man on the right, it's a fake. Because no man in their right mind can do what that woman did with that fire. So if you see a man standing next to the fire pit or sitting next to the fire pit or making the bread, they didn't make the bread. Somebody else did. You know, they say that, you know, the women are the brains of the operation. Well, in Morocco, they're the muscle too. So I like to make sure I share that as well, because I just have such a deep found respect for Berber women, just because of the fact that, you know, again, the education isn't a mainstay for them, but the fact that they actually still go through, not everywhere, but still go through, and what they're able to learn and achieve and do is just amazing. So how many of you have stuck your hand in a fire pit? It's, you know, go ahead and say that. I know, you know, Paul's a regular Indiana Jones. He sticks his hand in all fire pits, and Carol is the toughest one of us all. But Sheila, I heard that Sheila was bungee jumping and sticking her hand in fire pits at the exact same time. Is what I heard. So anybody else here adventurous enough? Always. So let's talk about some of these areas. So here, I want to show you this map. Let's stop here for a second, okay? So no way for me. Sheila's a liar. Don't believe her. I've seen her bungee jumping with her hair on fire. Don't listen to her. So if we just take a look real quick, okay? So Casablanca is here, Rabat is here, Fez is here, and then Marrakesh is here, right? Now, if you start looking at Morocco, these names will come up a lot. Casablanca, Rabat, Fez, Marrakesh will come up a lot. But then beyond that, the Sahara Desert will come up a lot. The Atlas Mountains will come up a lot. You know, and Ouarzazate may or may not come up a lot. But let's talk about the breakdown of what Morocco is like. So take Morocco and just put it into to two parts, okay? Even three parts, if you will. So up here in the Straits of Gibraltar is Tangier. There's a city up here that's one of my favorites called Chefchaouen. Chefchaouen is the blue city. And, you know, if you've been to India, you've been to Jodhpur and you've seen the blue city there. This blue city, and I'll show you this in a second, it is so different just because of the fact that the city is painted blue to remind people about the sky, the heavens, to remind people, literally, it's painted blue to remind you of moral character. Think about that for a second. What other city in the world has that? And I'll show you that in a second. But the reason I brought this map up is to show you that beyond Casablanca, Rabat, Fez, and Marrakesh, there's so many other parts. So Walidia, for example, I was just in Walidia in 2019. I'm actually possibly heading back to Morocco this September. This will be, by the way, because Paul counts, time number 24 that I'll be in.
I was just going to say, I didn't mention how many times you've been to Morocco. It's more than two hands.
24 times, yes, to 24 times. And, you know, one of the places that I've been starting to explore, you know, and our guys have been starting to explore as well, but one that won't be on this trip on time 25 and 26 is actually heading really further south near the Mauritania border. That's completely untouched Morocco. But if you were to break this up, look at Walidia. So could you imagine, again, all of us like bragging rights. So if you go to Walidia, not only can you say, I went to Morocco, but you can say, I went surfing off the North African coast, because that's where it happens. Walidia is where people go surfing. You hear Agadir, you hear Essaouira. Essaouira is a coastal town. It's beautiful. Agadir is basically Speedo Central. You know, that's where everybody shows up. But Walidia is this little quiet town that nobody really knows about. And it's actually a hotbed for oysters, for oyster farming. But beyond that, it's just a beautiful setting. The Agafay Desert's a rock desert. And fun fact, anybody here have a Jeep? Anybody here own a Jeep, Wrangler, Grand Cherokee, Cherokee, anything, or even had a Jeep in the family? Put a Y in there if you have one. Please, somebody make it up and say you have a Jeep. I don't know. Just somebody has to have one. They can't sell this many Jeeps and nobody in Canada has one. Come on. So why I bring this up is because the Agafay Desert, a CRV, close enough, Elaine, close enough. So the Agafay Desert actually is where Jeep tests their Wranglers. They take them. It's a rock desert. It's not the Sahara. It's the rock desert. So little known fact, Jeep has events here a couple times a year where they actually test out the suspension on their Wrangler. So next time you see a Wrangler on the road or you hear about going, Wrangler, it's trail ready, just know that Agafay is one of the places they test them when they're here. And then Zagora. So, you hear about the Sahara Desert. That's going out near Merzouga, which is the Sahara Desert. But Zagora is where nobody knows. Catherine, if you used to have one, that means you still have one. A Jeep never leaves you. You leave the Jeep. But the Jeep never leaves you. So once a Jeep, even if you don't have it anymore, you're still a Jeeper. So when you start actually thinking about this and looking at a place like Zagora, what you're starting to see is on this map is that there's more to Morocco than just Marrakesh and Rabat and Fez and Casablanca. There's other areas to explore, and that's a big part, right?
One thing you show where Casablanca is, and a lot of people, when they haven't been before, that's a spot they want to go to for name recognition. But we don't really recommend that you spend much time in Casablanca, right?
You're spot on. Yeah, I've been to Casablanca. I've been through there pretty much every time I go. Even this time, I'll be heading out from Casablanca. I'm not a big fan of it. What gets a lot of attention in Casablanca is Rick's Cafe because of the movie. It's not the original. it's a replica. It's not an original. So yeah, I'm gonna go have coffee or tea at Rick's Cafe. I'm gonna have a drink at Rick's Cafe. That's the feel. Casablanca has some touring with mosques and whatnot, but if you actually go out and you explore new areas. By the way, Laura, game, absolutely yes. That sounds fantastic. 3 of my 37 more countries to go. I'm down for that. Let's go. All right, Sheila, apparently you're coming to Southern Morocco. So.
Sounds good. Laura is one of my clients I think she's been to 165 countries.
She has 37 countries left. So,
168 maybe? Yeah.
Well, here's the good news. Because Morocco has so many different parts, Morocco one visit counts as 37 countries. So just one visit to Morocco and you got your list done. You're all set. You don't have to go anywhere else. So you're there now. So this is Chefchaouen. This is up in the north. This, what I was talking about, the Blue City, what it looks like. This is where you get into the history, but really just the element of what Chefchaouen is about is something that you won't see anywhere else. It's literally a city of heavens. It is a city that's painted blue to remind you to look up at the heavens. It just says so much. And if you step back, it's not just one step or one alley or one stairway. It's the whole town. This is what it looks like. So this is just so special in terms of it. More examples at the top on the left-hand side. But you start looking also at, Tamouda Bay and at the coastline. So there's a beautiful banyan tree hotel up at Tamouda Bay as well. So people think often, well, if I'm going to go up to the northern part, then, am I really going to get the right experience? Does that answer your question? That's basically what you're looking at. So just imagine you are up at the northern part of Morocco at a banyan tree hotel. That's your view, and you are looking over. So you're sitting out on the coast. You are looking over off the coast of North Africa. This way, you're not far. If you keep going around, you have the Straits of Gibraltar. You start heading south, but you're looking at the ocean, but you are literally looking at one of the largest bodies of vast openings of ocean out there in the world. And this picture you're looking at here, this is not a photoshopped image. This is not anything there. It's what it really looks like. It looks. I had somebody once tell me that looks like it's an artist's rendering. No, that's actually what it really looks like. And that's really what's special about it. So there are these hidden gems all over Morocco that's there. One of the things that I love doing, and I'll be doing this when I go on this trip, and this is one that of my 20, soon to be 24 times I haven't done yet, because this train just launched in 2019. But this is, Moroccans are very proud about this. It is the first bullet train in the entire country. And it's called Al Barouk. And it is a bullet train that can go from Tangiers to Casablanca in 90 minutes. The drive takes over 4 hours, and it can make it in 90 minutes. And it becomes a whole new way to connect the northern part of Morocco with Casablanca, to fly home. So this is something that I'm excited about. And you see what you're seeing again everywhere you go here. That's really what it comes down to. And you get snacks on here too. And of course, as you all know, the snacks are all based in what? Olives. So they give you that as well. How many of you know what a tannery is? Put a Y or an N. Laura, I know you know what this is. You have to know what this is. But how many of you know what a tannery is? Put a Y in the chat box. And put an N if you don't know. It's okay. Don't be shy. Yeah. Bought a purse and 2 jackets. Exactly right. Exactly right. So just think about this for a second, right? Just in general. Think about this. Tannery as in leather. Exactly, Elaine. Tannery as in leather. Bridget, exactly right. So this is basically, yes, exactly, leather products. When you get the leather products, though, before you buy, think about if you have a leather jacket, or if for you John Bon Jovi fans, or Bon Jovi fans, leather pants, you've got that as well. Think about how that leather gets tanned, how it gets colored, how it gets stained. It's here. It happens here. This is inside the old city of Fez. This is where the tanneries come in, and this is still a work in progress. Now, I will preface it by saying this, that it does not smell good here at all. It is a place that you must go to once to see. You will never want to go back to the tannery again, but you must see it at least once. It's just impressive. It's sort of like Dhobi Ghat in Mumbai in India, which is where they wash the laundry off the rock. They dry the laundry on the rocks. Or Varanasi in India, or going to Madni or Khartoum in Sudan, or there's so many different places like this. They're like, okay, well, I don't think I want to go there again to see that again, but I do need to see it once, because it is just a landmark destination. So that's where the tanneries come in. But I want to talk for a second about Fez, just because of the fact that there's just something really, really special about Fez. And here's what I mean by that, okay? This is a picture of the old town of Fez, La Medina. But I like putting things in perspective. The right-hand side is the entire old town. You got different sections of the old town of Fez, but this is the entire Medina on the right-hand side. The left-hand side is Manhattan, New York. Just look at the comparison, the fact that an old town or an old walled city inside of Fez is about the size of New York City. That just shows you the size. So people, when somebody says, "Oh, can I walk across the Medina?" Sure, it just won't happen in a few hours. It'll be longer than that. But people sometimes misunderstand. They sometimes underestimate how large a Medina is. They'll underestimate just how many narrow lanes. And look, 24, 23 times later, I still get lost in these Medinas sometimes. Everything goes east, west, north, south. So that's why we're guiding you the whole way. But that's a big part of it. But then you come to Marrakesh. It's the same thing. Now the more colorful part starts, right? So if I could break it up, Fez is the Medina that you have to see. Marrakesh is the Medina that you must see. So this is what the Medina and Marrakesh looks like. And again, with the different food spices, somebody was talking about spices earlier and whatnot. This is what it looks like. This is what the experience is like. The souks that you see, where you got the little tents, the red covers. That's the souks. That's where people are just bartering happening. The right-hand side picture at the top, that's Yves Saint Laurent. That's the museum and the house of Yves Saint Laurent outside of Marrakesh. So that's also here as well. Now, when you visit here, you get the museum, but you got to make a donation to go in and see the house itself, which you've got to be into the designs. You got to be into the style to go in there. Anybody here a motorcycle fan? Again, put a Y. Again, so Sheila, the bungee jumping, the bungee jumping stone pit hand inserter. She's also a motorcycle, so you got to see her.
Oh,
She
yeah.
actually can control this motorcycle with her toes while she's standing up. It's pretty amazing. Just gotta tell you. So as you may or may not have seen, and Sheila knows this, I'm a nerd. I'm flat out tell you, I'm a geek. I'm a history nerd. I love everything about history. I love learning about history. I love knowing the ins and outs of history. So as we were talking about history and going through all these different things, one of the things that I love is just how history comes forward. So what you're looking at here is a Russian make. It's called Ural. And these are replicas of BMW M71 motorcycle sidecars. The original ones were actually found in an abandoned factory after World War II. Somewhere in Germany, somewhere in Poland, and what you're looking at here is the replica of these motorcycles. The French company actually brought these motorcycles to Morocco, and we use these for touring in Marrakesh. We use these for touring to go through, because you get to go through these narrow by lanes in Marrakesh that you otherwise can't do, which is really great. But you also get to see things like this. No, this photo is not upside down. It is quite the opposite, but this is what design looks like. This is actually what a design looks like. It's really quite amazing in terms of it. So but this is what you're looking at. So I just noticed something, Sheila. I got some red marks all over my screen. Do you have it as well?
Yes, on that picture only, though.
Yeah, that's weird, huh? I'm gonna see if I can just erase everything and see if that makes it all go away. Yeah, look at that, all done. Okay, done and done. So, so this is actually, it's called Upside Down House. This is an architecture or a sculpture that was actually put together outside of Marrakesh. So if you're on those sidecars, you could ride out here. You can go by car as well, but you can't get all the way up here. But on those sidecars, you get to go out through Oasis and get out here to see things like this. This is the part of Marrakesh that you can't see in a vehicle. This is not a museum. This is not a temple. This is not a mosque. This is real. This is what Marrakesh, the actual design, the decor, the lifestyle. This is the eclectic section of Marrakesh. This is what it looks like. And a lot of people will come to Marrakesh and expect to see, okay, souks and medinas and whatnot. There's so many little hidden things that are there. Like, for example, I have to tell you, I found 2 great Indian restaurants inside of Marrakesh, and I plan on going back to both of them on this trip. One of them, the host is now 24 years old, and it's actually a family. So she's 24 years old. She's Moroccan. She got her master's degree in India and is fluent in Hindi. Became completely fluent in Hindi, came back, brought chefs in from Delhi, and the food is just amazing. If you guys find yourself in Morocco, the restaurant's name is called Bombay. Definitely go there. It is just amazing in terms of
It's just amazing to have the confluence of all these different cultures in Morocco, and certainly as an African country, but also so close to Europe, and now India as well, feeding in there. It's incredible.
Well, it's an interesting point. I don't know if you know this, but more Bollywood films are now filmed in Morocco than there are in parts of India. They're all over Morocco.
Wow.
Oh, it's once Bollywood arrives, you've arrived. So there's that. Once you got the wet saris and the singing and everything else, you've arrived. So yeah, it is. You're spot on. When you go into Morocco and all parts, there is so much European influence, from French being used widely across the country, in the Arabic not being pure Arabic, but being a confluence of Arabic. It's kind of a merger, a fusion of different styles. So, for example, if my mother went to Morocco and spoke in her Arabic there that she learned in Sudan, they wouldn't understand it. And I went through. I tell you, in the Jewish section of the Medina in Marrakesh, I found this one Lebanese restaurant, and I walked in and I went, Kefalak, just to see what they would say. And they understood what I said, and they came back. And then I said, Aslu shinu, little catchphrases my mom taught me. And they literally knew everything that I was saying, which means I knew I had to eat there. And I got different, all the different food that I used to eat growing up. I got there, and that was actually really key. But you're right. So the different confluence of experiences. Now we get asked all the time, well, what about hotels? How are the hotels in Morocco? Okay. Well, we can answer that very simply. What you're looking at here is a hotel called the Royal Mansour. It probably, the best way I can describe it is it'll make a Four Seasons look like a Motel 6. That's probably the best way I can describe it. This is the King's Royal Residence, one of the King's Royal Residences. It is, your room is basically 2 or 3 floors. There is a private tunnel that comes up to your room. So every room has a butler. And so in the morning you come down in the living room, and the butler has come into the kitchen area, and whatever you wanted to have, cappuccino, what was being made right there. And there's a private entrance coming in and out from there. It's an underground tunnel that goes, and it really is just quite amazing, quite impressive in terms of what they do. Then, of course, you heard about Casbahs. Of course, not the 80s song, but beyond that, you heard about the history of Casbahs. Now, this is where you put your Indiana Jones hat on. This is where you show up, and you have Brody on the horse going, "Come, Indy, I'll show you the way," and you go off on the horse. So it comes from there. How many of you think Casbah? How many of you know how to spell Casbah? Let's start with that. How do we spell Casbah? Okay. So this is, keep going. I'll wait. Who else wants to write in there? Who else wants to take a shot at this? The winner gets a photo that I took of Sheila riding a motorcycle with her hair on fire, controlling it with her toes. So, truth be told, it's spelled both ways. It's actually spelled, K is more commonly used for Casbah, but it is spelled both ways. So Laura, you're also correct in this as well. It is used both ways. You'll find it written with a K more often, especially within Morocco. You will see Casbah spelled with a K, and that has more to the European influence. That's spelled with a K, so that's important to know as well. This is what I mean when it comes to little touches. So this is Casbah Tamadot. This is Richard Branson's property in the Atlas Mountains, and this is what the stairways look like. In terms of going up. The joke I had last time when I said, well, this is a stairway into the Virgin Galactic ship that's taking you up into space. No, not really. But this is actually what the stairways look like. And the reason I took a picture of this is because the entire Casbah is built around this stairway. When Richard Branson's team first got there and decided to make this property into a hotel, this stairway was here. And they built the entire property around this stairway, which was really great. Now, those of you who you answered earlier that you like motorcycles, so this is my favorite way of exploring the rock desert. What you're looking at here is the Agafay Rock Desert, where this is where Jeep Trail test their Wranglers and their other SUVs, their 4-wheel drives. So getting through here, you're in these quad bikes. Now I have to tell you a funny story. That was my quad bike, that blue one right there, and this happened on my last trip. I got off the quad bike, and as I was getting off the quad bike, I actually was stepping down. I hear somebody screaming, "Malesh, Malesh, Malesh, Malesh!" Like, what's going on? And I looked down. There was a yellow scorpion that big that was about to ruin my day. That was right under my feet, and the stinger was up, and it was going to go through my soul. So I was about to have a really bad day. So, again, they were there first. So obviously, you're more careful than I would be. I'm the guy that basically says, all right, well, it's there. I don't want to do anything to hurt it. But of course, when somebody starts screaming Malesh, I start looking down. I see it. I go, oh, there it is. There's the scorpion. But yeah, Elaine, you mentioned you saw Richard Branson. In Switzerland. So I got to tell you, I met him at a conference here as well. In 2013, I met him at a conference here, and he's actually quite hilarious. And I'll tell you what I mean by this. It's a funny story. We were at a luxury travel summit, and I actually got to meet Nelson Mandela's personal chef while I was there. She was writing a cookbook about his dishes. So we were talking about his dishes. We were designing a tour around that, and I got to talk to her. And then he shows up for a talk. And somebody in the front, this is 2013, you got to remember, Virgin Galactic was still in infancy. And he starts talking about this and says, somebody raises their hand and says, so is Virgin Galactic about being in space? Now, this is 2013. He says, If you think Virgin Galactic is about going into orbit, then you are short-sighted, as I hoped you wouldn't be. And so he, journalist, was taken aback. He said, Virgin Galactic is an exercise in supersonic passenger flight beyond the Concorde. It's an exercise in supersonic passenger flight. And sure enough, you take a look now, what's out? Boom, supersonic. And other planes are coming out. They're able to take you from, by the end of the decade, will take you from LA to Sydney in 4 hours, LA to London in 2 hours. That was Richard Branson talking in 2013 about something that's in the news right now. That just shows you how forward-thinking he is. Whether you like his business acumen or not, whether you like him as a person or not, you have to give him credit for just having that kind of foresight to talk about. So I bring that up just because of the fact that, if you walk into his property in the Atlas Mountains, it's that same foresight. The way he's put this together. For example, he has one person sitting at his kasbah that all they do all day is just pouring tea for you, pouring Moroccan tea for you to have tea, just because that's something, as you're passing through, he knows how important that is. Little touches like that. So I'm a car junkie. Paul knows this as well. I'm a car junkie. So that road back there, that's your switchback. So Morocco has a lot of driving, but you can't fly in different places, but you got to be okay driving on those switchbacks. If you can't drive on those, then we route the trip a certain way where you're flying more lakes. But some places driving is going to be unavoidable. So you've just got to prepare yourself for drives like that. And then the left-hand side is, of course, the kasbahs. Those are another one of the famous kasbah that you have to see. One of the places that, if you're a foodie, how many of you here are foodies? Just, love food, love everything about fresh food and everything. Just put a Y if you're a foodie. Well, I know, there you go. Yeah, perfect. So this is a place, Beatrice, good to hear. Yes, perfect. So this is a place called Dar Atam. This is in the Eastern Atlas Mountains. This is where all the kasbahs are. This is in a town called Skora. Skora, good, Sandy, yep. So Skora is actually just about an hour from Ouarzazate. Catherine, exactly right. And Bridget, exactly right. Local food, that's exactly what I was getting at here, local food. What's cool about this place, Dar-Halam, I have to tell you, this is probably my favorite place in all of Morocco. Every time I go there, if I'm going to Eastern Atlas, I stay here. And no matter who's going to Morocco, no matter what we do, we tell everybody that you have to spend at least 2 nights here, if not 3. So this particular place, it is a kasbah turned into a hotel, Riyadh but also more of a kasbah. All the wood inlay work you see here is original. Some of the top part, the sculptures at the top here, they're all original. What's really unique about this place, though, is all the food is grown on site, and every single day, every meal you have, you will not have a meal in the same place. If you were here for 3 nights, can you imagine that? You will not have any one meal in the same place on property. In one particular meal, I'll never forget, there's a little stream that goes down one of the walkways that leads into the lush gardens. They actually put the table over the stream, so it straddles the stream, and you sit down on the ground with your feet dangling in the water. So you have this cool stream water going over your feet, and the food's and then you're eating right there as the food's being delivered, everything prepared fresh. There's really not much of a menu. Just tell them what your dietary needs are in terms of what, for example, I'm vegetarian, and they're custom making everything around that. It is just amazing. So it's a place here. And by the way, olives here, they are tops at this place, absolute tops here. What's really cool here is the olive groves that are different places here, they're handed down generations. You have olive groves that are 3-4 generations old that are handed down, and the next generation won't sell the land. They even if they have other jobs, they still take care of these olive groves, which is just amazing. I can't not show you a picture of camels in Morocco. I mean, I have to show you a picture of camels. Although, everybody who comes up to me and says, all right, I have to ride a camel. Great. I've always wanted to ride a camel. Great. 10 minutes later, okay, I'm done with the camel. I want to get off the camel. And then they get off, and it's in theory, it's great, but you got the camel and go, yeah, okay, that didn't feel as good as I was supposed to. So there's that aspect of it as well. But it is in one place, it's a must. In the Sahara Desert, this is what your accommodations would look like. So this is now in Merzouga, which is complete other side, past the Eastern Atlas Mountains. You're getting into the pure Sahara Desert near Merzouga. This is where you're staying, in a Berber tent like this. I talked to you earlier about getting down towards the southern part of Morocco near the Mauritania border. This is what I was talking about. And Tafrout is actually one of the places. So you see right here, Taroudant. This is 3 hours from Marrakesh. This is Asni. This is where Kasbah Tamadot is, where Richard Branson's place is. But right here, Taroudant, this place is declared the new Marrakesh. In fact, on this trip, I'm actually heading back here because I fell in love with Taroudant, just what it's about. This is what it looks like. The architecture is very different. You start seeing a different flavor. Yes, the minarets are the same, but beyond that, you start seeing a very different flavor. But this city is declared, or by locals, as actually to be the new Marrakesh in terms of experience. But these are some of the things you'll see around Taroudant. You start seeing again, you see how everything looks so different here. A bit more of a Victorian feel, a bit more of a Tudor feel, not so much the ancient Islamic architecture, not so much the Philistine architecture, but beyond that. There's also a ton of Jewish heritage here as well that goes into it. And then you get down near the coastline, you get down near the Mauritania border, this is what your coastline starts looking like. It's untouched here. There's no hotels down here, really hardly any hotels down here. In Taroudant, for example, there's 2 hotels in the whole town. So it's not developed at all. So part of the beauty of a place like this is where the future of Morocco is going to be in the next 5 to 10 years. But to get here right now, to see pure Morocco, it just becomes very special. So let's talk about let's talk about Berbers. And Laura, like I said, you know, one visit to Morocco, your 35 countries will get checked off in one visit because it'll be like different regions in terms of it. So yeah, Paul, it looks like Namibia is more of a red, but you start seeing how all the deserts are interconnected. You start seeing how from the Kalahari to the Sahara to everything else, how it's all interconnected in different places. Let's talk about the Berbers, for example. So these are examples of the Berber community. Fun fact is the fact that the Berbers date back to 10,000 BCE, and some cases even beyond. How many of you have been to Egypt? Put a Y if you've been to Egypt at any point in your life. Put an N if you haven't been, that's okay too. By the way, 26 times to Egypt, just in case you're wondering, Paul. So think about this for a second. The Western Desert, which near the Libya border, it's not open right now, in the Siwa Oasis, which is actually one of my favorite places of Egypt. There's a property there that's actually buried under the sand. It's called Adrer Amalal. Your rooms are buried under the sand to keep it cooler. So you walk down under the desert, and it's built like traditional property. But the reason I bring that up in Egypt is because of the fact that the Berber community, there's proof that they actually traversed all over, you know, they're very nomadic, and they traversed all over Northern Africa. And the reason we know that is because there's still a population of about 30,000 Berber in Egypt, in the Siwa Desert, in the Siwa Oasis, in the Western Desert. And they've reached across there. So you start seeing elements of Berber culture all over Africa, but especially in North Africa. So it's not just, yeah, of course, Morocco is where you go to see it, but it's not just here. It's where you get the most easiest access, or you get the easiest access to the Berber culture. But when you see it, oftentimes people think Berber culture is, oh, it's just tagine, and I learned how to, you know, do henna and what. No. You're talking about a culture that's going back to, you know, between 5 and 10,000 BCE. It predates, you think about that, right? You're predating the Mayans, you're predating the Incas, you're predating the Aztecs, you're predating almost every ancient religion short of ancient Egypt and ancient Greece, and you know, ancient Egypt in particular. You think about how old they are. That's really what it comes down to.
Awesome. I'm just noticing we're just over 6, Ashish.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to go right through over here. I wanted to show you guys that the Berber tent that we showed you we're staying at, this is where traditional Berber tents look like. So this is, if you want to get the real experience. So Laura, if you want to check off country number 35, we'll use a tent like this. We'll put you here. The last thing I wanted to show you guys was this, and I promise I'm done, is Ouarzazate. Did you know that the Gladiator movie, the Mummy movies, Game of Thrones, and also Homeland, the Netflix movie, all filmed in Ouarzazate? In fact, in Walidi, I was there with the family, and I was there. I don't know how, but my son apparently ran the director of Homeland because they were all hanging out there after the season was over. So, no Starbucks coffee cup for those of you Game of Thrones fans know Starbucks coffee cup misplaced somewhere in this scene, but otherwise you could see that there's a lot of history here. So Sheila, back over to you. See if anybody had any questions.
That was awesome. Thank you. I wanted we got a little bit of a late start with the technical glitch, but I did want to just kind of respect your time and everyone's time. So thank you very much. I will stop the streaming on Facebook in case people want to come on and ask some questions. So I'll turn off the sharing too. And did I cut you short? Did you have a couple more slides?
No, your timing was perfect. No, your timing was
awesome.
perfect. Okay. I was literally just ending here. So you're spot on.
Okay.
See, look at that. So rides a motorcycle with her toes, hair on fire, bungee jumping, stone throwing, sticking your hand in a fire, and you know how to perfectly time a presentation on top of that as well. How's that?
Well, I tell you, I do know how to multitask.
There you go.
Okay, so we stopped the live streaming. If people want to come back on with their faces, Ashish, do you have another 5 minutes or so for questions?
Sure, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, I love talking about this stuff, and I have to. I'll just share this with you that my first visit to Morocco, between us, I hated it. I hated it, and it was because I came back and said, "There's so much more that's possible here." And then we just started developing more and more and more. And now I actually love going there. Every visit, something new pops up in every visit, which is just amazing.
That's awesome. Do we need your slide there if people want to come back on?
No, let me turn it off. Let me turn the slide off.
Does anyone have any questions? I appreciate that we're running a little bit over, but if a few people had to drop off, but I will send them the recording after. I do know I have a client who really wants the Berber experience. We can design a whole trip around that, right? Like just.
I mean, we absolutely, a Berber experience. I just had a conversation yesterday, actually, with somebody that we're not just a Berber experience, we can design around that, but we're designing a whole experience around actually women-owned businesses for an entrepreneurial group. So they're advisors based actually in North Carolina. And it was just an initial conversation, but it was about that. So yeah, we can get it specialized as Berber groups, we get it specialized as women's owned, and even within the Berber groups, it's how in depth do you want to get? Yeah. Do you want to spend nights in the desert? Do we want to actually go into the Atlas Mountains, the Eastern Atlas Mountains? Where do we want to go? That becomes a big part of it.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Laura, yeah. If you had a question, you're welcome to turn your mic on and.
Well,
Laura's ready
Western
to go.
Sahara and Mauritania and South Sudan. I'm ready. I want to go.
Yeah. No, look, I'm with you. I think what we'll do, Sheila, what we'll do, I'm being dead serious. When I come back from this trip, you and I talk. Let's plan the next recreational trip out there, and let's take Laura with us. That'll be great.
Hey, sounds good. It looks like Sandy wants to go too. Do you, Sandy?
Yeah. And I was going to tell everybody, because Sandy, you're ready to go in 2022 as well. I have to share with everybody, I shared this with Sheila, but this just came out over the weekend. So on last Friday, Morocco had reduced the PCR testing window to 48 hours. So we were going, wait a second, that's virtually impossible. How do you get a PCR test within 48 hours of landing in Morocco? And then sure enough, that was on Thursday, on Saturday, they came out with the news and says, oh, here's a second leg of it. If you are fully vaccinated, come on in, no testing required. So what they are doing is actually very smart. They are shortening the window for people who are not vaccinated, so it's a bit difficult to get in. And then they're telling you, if you are vaccinated, come on in. And I have to add that Morocco, as a country, is among the top 5 in the world in terms of vaccination rates within their population, which is very rare considering in Africa, it is moving fast, but it's been moving. The third world countries, Morocco from the very beginning has been on top of it, and our according to the CDC and the World Health Organization, especially the World Health Organization, their ranking, they are in the top 5 in terms of vaccination rates among population.
Oh, awesome. Does anyone have a question? Kathy's just coming back in. Her phone died, so she had to plug it in and come back again. I'll send you the recording, Kathy. No worries.
I want to know who's drinking what. I know Paul's got a martini, but who else is drinking?
I'm still drinking coffee. Paul's on a martini. Good for you.
It was there. It is. Yeah, there's the martini. So there you go. So yeah, I mean, Bridget, great question about how safe is it. So if you were to ask that question 10 years ago, 8 years ago, there's the olive, nice, Laura, in the martini, there's the olive. So yeah, Bridget, great question, right? So if you were to talk about 12, 15 years ago, it would say pockets. Well, here's what's happened over the last 15 years. So first of all, Morocco is, again, more European than it is, than it is old-fashioned, right? So there's a ton of European traffic that comes in, whether it's in Marrakesh, whether it's in Tangiers, and so there's a ton of influence from there. So because that's still their biggest market, they actually have made sure that tourism became very important. So over the last 10 years, Morocco has been focusing on safety, and rightfully so. King Mohammed VI actually is the first king in Morocco's history who is so pro-tourism that he's been giving up his homes, his palaces, to turn them into hotels, like the Royal Mansour, for use. When you go everywhere, the way we do Morocco and the way we recommend doing Morocco is one guide all the way through. So the minute you land, the minute you leave,
Okay.
one guide all the way through. Because you do drive in different places, drivers don't speak very much English. So you have one guide all the way through. You can explain different things and talk about different things. That becomes a big part of it as well. Different conferences, from sustainable tourism conferences to, car manufacturers, they're all coming into Morocco for incentive trips. They're coming into Morocco for the corporate meetings, for engineering tests, in terms of that. Not only that, but you've also now got movie industries starting to show up. As I mentioned, all these movies that are still being filmed in Ouarzazate, it's the new Hollywood. And then Bollywood coming there as well. So all this influx of foreign focus coming into Morocco as a whole, that's all speaking to the point about the fact that the country is widely accepted as among one of the safest destinations in Africa. And Elaine, that's another great question. So, what Sheila and I do, we plan everything custom and private. So if you're going with 2 people, it's just the 2 of you. It actually is a lot more fun if you're doing that. If you have a small group, 4 or 6 people is really ideal. You can go up to 10. But what happens with let's say 10 people, you start taking over small riads, which is nice. But I wouldn't go more than 15. I wouldn't go more than 15, just because of the fact that, once you get past 15, then you can't use the small riads, and you're stuck in large hotels, which, while nice, there's nothing special about them. Marrakesh is, for example, is one place where, while there is the Four Seasons, Nana Naman, and everything else that's there, the Royal Mansour is still at the top. The La Sultana is there. Riyad Joya is there. These small little hidden places in the old city are actually where you want to stay in the end. That's the key.
Awesome. Well, we're now at 6:11. Unless there's one more question to wrap it up. Anybody? Okay.
I want to see the stone pit. I want to see another photo of you with the motorcycle, the stone pit, and everything else.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, there you go.
The one thing I will ask, what do you guys ever use any female guides? Is that an issue?
That's actually a really good question. So female guides, we do use them primarily in Marrakesh. Most of them don't like traveling national just because they have family commitments. So when it comes to national guides, we have a hand selection of guides we use that are national certified guides. It's a bit harder to get female guides. It's something that we do encourage, however. We're trying to actually encourage. In fact, one of the reasons I'm going there, as a matter of fact, is because I'm actually interviewing 2 new guides that want to come work with us. And one of them actually is a female.
I was just thinking, because you talked about female businesses, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big part of what we want to get into. And we have access to some really great guides, but like I said, the ones we have access to in general don't like leaving Marrakesh or Casablanca. We're trying to figure out a way to be able to have them travel, nationally, because they're gone for 10, 12 days if they're national guides.
Yeah. But
having it where they're still able to maintain their family commitments. And I'll just expand that a little bit, just because at home, remember, their home life is very different. Morocco, just like most countries in Africa, is still a very male-dominant society. So even though they get to go travel 10, 12 nights, they don't get very much help at home. When they say they can't travel beyond their city borders, it's not that they don't want to, it's that in many cases they don't have the ability to. And so
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a long-term project for us to be able to help find a system that works that allows them to start earning a gainful wage for longer periods of time to support their whole family.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, my friend. I really appreciate it. Oh, Paul is just saying one of your best guides is Vicky in
Vicky in
Cartagena.
Cartagena in Colombia. Yeah, she's
Awesome.
actually, in fact, I'm traveling with her in 2 weeks
Oh, terrific.
with my family. She's amazing, absolutely amazing.
Awesome. Thank you again. I would like to have you back again. You made the offer, so I'll take you up on it.
I would love it. I enjoy these so much, so it's great. I love it.
So we'll pick another destination if anyone wants to hear about a spot that Ashish and I work on for clients, or where is there any spot you haven't been very much, like where you're into 5? Not very many.
I've never been to Hawaii. You know that? I've never in my life been to Hawaii, and I've never been to Alaska. I gotta tell you that. I've never been to either one.
Well, there you
Uh,
go.
so there's that. I mean, there's a lot of places. I haven't been to most of Europe. I mean, I have family in London, so I go there. But beyond that, I haven't been beyond that in Europe. But I'm dying to get back to Morocco and dying to actually get back to Colombia. I'm going there in 2 weeks.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you everyone for joining. I will send the recording. Ashish, Paul, Carol,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. And everyone, thank you for joining. It was fantastic.
Take care. Bye. Take care. Bye bye now.